If you have watched any of my reviews that cover racing games, then you know that I'm the sort of gamer that really enjoys the arcade racer. And with that, I usually look for the racers that provide that fantasy of being in a car chase. A game like Split Second gave us fast racing along with being able to trigger events within the environment to make it feel like you're in a large Hollywood production. It successfully built that fantasy that you could safely explore from your home. And the same can be said for my love of Burnout Revenge. This was my first exposure to the series, and I loved how it focused on using your car as a weapon, with the focus of aggressive driving. This year, we've seen a few arcade racers come out that did grab my attention. Xenon Racer was a decent experience that had some fun racing that had you driving futuristic cars. And I very much enjoyed my time with Dangerous Driving, as it felt like a little brother to the Burnout games. Now, I do not usually venture into the racing side of games that focus on the elements of simulation. I do not normally find that engaging, but WRC8 was one that very much caught my eye, especially with its wealth of modes and the content that the player could enjoy. But that game definitely made me realize how I'm really not good at racing games.
Left 6 bumping, don't cut a junction, into flat right, 100. Cut, 30.
This fall features the release of a reboot to the Grid series. I had never played an entry within the series before, but as an observer, I saw that a lot of people really enjoyed it, and as an arcade racing fan, I did want to try one of these games. Since I enjoy this genre, I figured this was a really good opportunity to try out the series. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Grid. Grid is the fourth entry within the franchise, and it's a reboot for the series.
For a long race now.
I found myself both enjoying and struggling with my first few races within Grid. This was my first time playing any entry within the series, so I didn't have any prior experience with it. It was also a series that I knew of, and I knew it had its fans, but I never had the pleasure to playing it. I found handling my car to be a bit tough, and after playing for a while, I knew that it wasn't the game's fault. It was because of my lack of skill. What I was pleasantly surprised with was how Grid allows you to tweak different settings to provide more assists for the player to make the driving easier to get a handle on for your skill level. After I found out that this game had those options, I was really happy I could tweak the game to be able to suit the experience that I wanted. I liked how I could essentially reduce the learning curve and feel like I could jump right in and enjoy it just like everyone else. At the same time, I felt like I could also tweak the settings later on if I wanted to improve my skill within the game. While increasing the assistance didn't turn me into a master at the game, it did help me gain that confidence within Grid. I felt like this was a good way to ease someone into the experience instead of throwing them into the deep end. While there are plenty of examples within gaming that show rewarding experiences from situations like that, I did like how Grid provided a more user-friendly way to try out their game.
Come on, I think you've hit them one too many times.
I generally enjoyed the racing here. One of my favorite parts is when you're fighting with other cars to take the lead. There's an interesting system at play here while in the races, and if you knock into another car a few other times, then you essentially create a nemesis. In theory, I like this system. It sort of creates that personalized confrontation between you and another driver. My problem with the system is how it's executed here. I would bump into cars and start confrontations with other AI, but I never really noticed them acting differently within the races. Maybe there's a bug with the system, or it doesn't work as intended. Also, in racing games, I very much enjoy the devastation and potential rush that can come from crashing your car, or hitting another car, or seeing the impact of that on your vehicle. I felt like the damage on the cars is a bit of a mixed bag. I do think it's pretty cool you can see pieces of your car flying off, but the damage itself feels really limited. There is some visual damage, but I kept feeling like the game could take this one step further. Now, since this is my first entry within the series, I decided to look back at some of the gameplay from the prior Grid games and see how that damage system worked. And after watching some footage, it definitely seems like they went backwards in regards to the damage. The first game looked better in regards to its destruction than this new game. And what was odd was how much I wanted to go back and try the first Grid game after watching the footage. I was still enjoying this new Grid, but it was starting to look like this new entry was a bit of a downgrade compared to the first one. And while I was seeing issues with the driving and the detail, I was still having fun with this title. There's a really cool feature in the game that allows you to rewind time and retry parts of the race if you screw up. So while you're driving, you can hit the triangle button and the game will rewind a bit of gameplay and allow the player to course correct their driving. So if you're hit by another car and that causes you to spin around, or if you hit a wall, or if you just didn't make a turn right, you can hit the rewind button and then try it again. Visually, I really like this mechanic as it was cool to look at. I also like how you can sort of take a quick break and then reassess the environments to find out the best way to proceed. It is a really nice feature and it takes some of the frustration out of making small errors that cost you an entire race. What is nice is how you can completely ignore this feature if you don't want to use it as well. The game features a few different modes for the player to enjoy. The single player does feature a career mode. The career mode provides several different races for you to do, and you have to meet the different conditions to be able to proceed. During the races, you will earn experience points and money. You can use that money to buy new vehicles, and that will allow you to participate in new events in the career mode. The career feels rather simple and uninspired in its presentation. Once you click the career mode, you are presented with events, but there's no story connected to it, neither are there any elements that really just make these events really come alive. I feel like the presentation of these events could have been better, as the presentation just kind of feels very bare bones. Along with that, I think a team management portion of the campaign could have been really awesome and added more meat to this game. The races themselves are pretty fun to do, and I always found myself enjoying the gameplay, but I took issue with how the career mode was presented. Thankfully, the career mode is not the only single player mode you have. You have a free race mode where you can still earn experience and rewards for playing it. Free race mode provides a bunch of different options for you to tweak, like selecting different maps and how many rounds you want to have. And those are the two different single player options for the player. The single player content seems a bit light. I think this game could have included a more extensive career mode, and that would have been better. Grid could have had a more extensive career mode and then an event mode, which is kind of like the career mode that they already have, and then have free play. I do think it's a bit of a missed opportunity to not include split-screen multiplayer here. I know this is a feature that is continually removed from many modern titles, but it would have been nice to see in this game. Though, there is online multiplayer if you do want to race against other players.
Okay, push this race. Okay, don't be surprised if they're gunning for you now.
I did enjoy myself in the multiplayer, though I'm not very good at it. But I do wish that there were some additional features that this game doesn't have. I wish there was some form of a party system so you can look for matches with a friend. I do like that you can set up private rooms for matches, but I wish there was a way for you to be able to go into a browser and individually select different rooms to join. There is a neat little waiting area where you can kind of dick around before the match starts, but I wish there was a little bit more to it, though it is better than just staring at a loading screen. Multiplayer is fun, but I feel like it needs more things to it that can be patched in to make it better. Lastly, I wish the races contained a music score of some kind. In getting ready for this review, I listened to the music from the first Grid game, and it's great. I do like the music that is played in this Grid's menus, but I do wish that it had music that was playing during the races itself. Here are a few tracks from the game. Overall, I had a fun time with Grid, and I'm still having a good time with it. I really enjoyed the arcadey nature of the racing. Cars feel good and the races are fun. I do think the game has a bunch of issues, along with feeling like it needs additional single-player modes to be able to make it feel like it's worth spending that full price on this game. I like how the game rewards you for your time with money and experience points, but I do feel like there's a lack in any car customization, and I feel like that's a feature that any fan would want. The multiplayer is generally fun, but it needs a few patches to make it a smoother experience. Grid is a very fun game that I would recommend you check out when it's on sale.